It's your Locked On Flyers podcast for Friday, July 7th. Your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that had a lot of fun watching the Dev Camp scrimmage.
Yeah, it's always fun. It's fast and loose.
Yeah, we're going to get into that, plus a couple more signings for the Flyers to talk about, all on today's show.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who is on Twitter at Sportsology. You can subscribe or follow us for free on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, you'll get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, we got a prospect signing and a depth signing to talk about. Let's talk about Victor Mete, a 1-year deal for $875K. It's a 2-way deal. I'm actually really glad the Flyers are giving him a shot. He's had a rough go of it with some injuries. Was on the Leafs and Marlies last season, but with real limited play. And I like it because he does have that NHL experience and really has the hunger, I think, to get back into it. But really, for now, is going to help, backstop the Phantoms.
Yeah, no question. I mean, he's an experienced guy who's a puck mover. I think his play has dipped the last few years but I also think Montreal rushed him. So I think he's like a reclamation project now because of it, because he was at the NHL level too soon. Then he played a whole bunch of games, and then then all of a sudden it was like, uh-oh, he's slipping a little. So he's a good guy to invest in that way. The only thing is, even at the Phantoms level now, if he's taking a premium spot, well, then that does kind of like make another prospect take a lesser spot, whether it's power play time or whatever. And those are the little things I still have to watch out for.
Yeah, I think we'll see how the Phantoms roster balances out in terms of who comes back and who is not coming back. We're going to talk about that a little bit next week for sure. But I think that for now, it seems like a pretty good solid signing for the Flyers.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The other signing we heard about was Ronnie Attard signed his next contract, got a 2-year deal, and doing what is now traditional deal where the first year is a 2-way contract and the second year is an NHL only contract. Kind of the Flyers are betting on him. He's betting on himself. And $850K for the salary. So very reasonable. Maybe even a little less than I would have expected. So I think this is really good for Ronnie. I think that he's in a really interesting situation where there's competition right now for those, up and coming defenseman spots on this team, whether it's Adam Ginning, whether it's Emil Andrae, there's a lot going on the blue line at that kind of, are they ready to take the next step? Group of guys.
I mean, at both levels there's going to be. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, if all of a sudden he loses, let's say, the top power play spot to Victor Mete, I'm not going to be thrilled about that. But that's what that's part of the battle. So, that's what he's up against. So yeah, he's going to have to come into camp hard, which is fine. I have nothing against that.
Yeah, I don't either. I think the contract's good, and I think the motivation is good, and I think it's going to be fun to watch and see what happens on the blue line with these guys, especially down in Lehigh Valley. An interesting development in the other contracts of the RFAs that we've been talking about, that the big ones were Noah Cates, Morgan Frost, and Cam York. Well, Noah Cates elected to go to arbitration for his next contract. The hearings begin July 20th and go through August 4th. We don't know when he's assigned yet, but of course they can always resolve the issue beforehand anyway. But I think of those three, I think Noah Cates does have the most bargaining power in terms of performance this past season to work with.
Yeah, I think he actually holds a little leverage over the Flyers because even though he
Hmm.
has less experience than the other two, he had a breakout year. And so I think it was smart of him to put that pressure on the Flyers and go for
Yeah.
arbitration. That was a smart move.
Yeah, I was very impressed by it.
Yep.
And absolutely, he does, I think, have the upper hand. Now, it's still not going to be like a gangbusters contract or
No, no.
anything, but he's going to get his value. And I
Yes.
think that's the most important part. And I think, for the Flyers and Noah Cates, who should be a big part of the Flyers' future moving forward, I think keeping him happy and giving him his worth is really important.
Yeah, it's important because now he's become a very important player in the John Tortorella era here. So he's going to get paid that way.
Yeah, so it does make me more intrigued by what the Cam York and Morgan Frost contracts are going to look like because they did not go to arbitration, but to be continued on that front.
Yep.
And then tomorrow is Tony D'Angelo Day in
Hmm.
our world. We will find out finally if that trade with Carolina is going to go through or not. And any guesses, Russ?
Yeah, Don Waddell said it's happening, so it's happening.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was 50% retention on that,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So yeah, so it'll free up a little bit of cap space, I
Hmm.
think, which is good to help with these three contracts that we've been talking about, especially with the other depth signings that the Flyers had. I think that'll give them a little bit more wiggle room under the cap to
Yes.
get all three deals done, which I think is the most important part. So, and it opens up that defenseman slot, which is also important.
Yeah, both things are very important at this point. And so yeah, we'll expect that to happen.
All right. Well, we will report back on that on the Monday show to confirm whether or not it took place and the implications, etc. We did end up finally getting to hear from Marc Staal and Ryan Poehling, who had signed with the Flyers but hadn't really talked about why yet. Or we've heard the Flyer side of why for them, but we hadn't heard their side. And I thought it's really interesting, especially Marc Staal. That he is really looking forward to being a role model and utilizing his experience with Tortorella. He talked a lot about how Tortorella has changed a lot since
Oh
he
yeah.
Stahl played for him, and but Stahl has changed too. And so
Hmm.
I think like he was really looking forward to building a new kind of relationship, as the veteran guy, as opposed to one of the younger guys where he
Right.
kind of felt more beholden or could be a little bit more nervous around Torts. I think it'll be more even level between the two.
Yeah, and I didn't realize he settled in Connecticut. I thought maybe he'd still be in Thunder Bay. So I mean, yeah, he's closer to Connecticut, than Florida, so that makes sense. Oddly, that Michael Roosevelt was a mentor because Michael Roosevelt had this up and down career with the Rangers, and a lot of fans did not like Michael Roosevelt because he just wasn't as good there. But he did persevere, so maybe that's the part that he took from that. Watching
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, I would say Stahl like kind of struggled a little bit when asked who his mentors were,
Yeah,
because if he was now going to become a mentor, it's like, well, how do you model, who do you model yourself
yeah,
after on
yeah.
that front? And Roosevelt was the one guy he could come up with, but I think that everything else aside, I think Mark Stahl should be a good presence in the locker room
Yeah,
for
he's never
everybody
a
else.
negative presence. It's just you have to know how to use him on the ice because the speed's not there, but he's good around the net.
Yeah, he is. And then Ryan Poehling had real extensive conversations, like really did his homework before
Yeah.
making the decision. I thought, had played with Nick Delorier before in Montreal, I believe. And
Yeah, when
then
he just very early on, like
very
for a little
briefly,
bit. Yeah.
yeah, and then, Noah Cates was a teammate of his in youth hockey, so
Yeah.
talked to him as well, but then played against him in college
Yeah, they
hockey,
were
which is always
adversaries in
fun.
college. Yeah.
Always fun when that happens, but he really liked the opportunity for the rebuild, and, he's excited for the challenge because this really is the opportunity to prove himself.
It really is. I mean, he's not going to get too many more, even though he's 24. The
Mhm.
big thing is he wouldn't really disclose what the injury was. We all kind of know, I think. And, he said he's been working with it, and that's good. I was happy to hear that. But again, you go look at his games played. He hasn't played over 50 something games in either of the last 2 seasons. And so he's got to get over that. If he doesn't, then that's gonna be tough, because everything else is good with this kid, but he's got to stay healthy. And if he can't, I'm not sure what's going to happen. So that's where, that's going to be the big thing here.
Yeah. I worry a little bit about it when in the tort system in terms of,
Yeah.
having to play more physical and
And he
blocking a
plays
ton of
physical.
shots.
He does.
Mhm. Yeah, so definitely something to keep an eye on, but I really think, he's got a good head on his shoulders and he
Oh, he
knows
does.
what
He's a
he
smart
has to
guy. I
do.
mean,
Yeah.
knows hockey. I mean, I've always really liked him, but yeah, I just, we'll see. He's the kind of guy, I was on the call, you pull for a guy like that.
Yeah, and then one last little bit of news: former Flyers coach Alain Vigneault is officially retiring from coaching, which is not a surprise. I think his I would call his time in Philadelphia fraught, is the word I can come up with um, to describe it. But things were going well for a while, but then obviously with COVID, that
The
kind
the
of
bubble killed him. Even though the
it
team
really
did
did.
well, it really ate away at him. And even into the
Well,
next
especially
season,
with his family issues
yeah,
too. I think just
yeah.
it was a lot for
And
him,
then
and
even for the next season, you could tell it disrupted the way he was going to be coaching. And all I could say is that extra money wasn't a bad retirement plan. That
yeah,
Flyers
I
money.
I think so. All right, well, we're gonna switch gears and talk about Dev Camp, get into the scrimmage, get into who stood out and maybe who should have stood out but didn't, and we'll do all of that coming up next.
Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet and amount in bonus bets, up to $200. That's right, just $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's 200 you could spend betting everything from the money line to the over/under to who you think's going to hit the first home run, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit fanduel.com/locked on to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's fanduel.com/locked on. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball.
We are going to have so much more in the next week and for the rest of the summer. We're going to talk about how Danny Briere is doing so far. Like I
Mhm.
said, we're going to get into what the Phantoms are going to look like and how they'll support the Flyers. We got a lot, so we'll be with you every step of the way all summer leading up to next season. Dev Camp is now officially over for the Flyers, and it ended with a really fun scrimmage, I would say. I enjoyed it tremendously. Thanks to the Flyers for streaming it for those of us who could not be there in person. Really appreciate that. And I think that aside from the obvious of having, a few people missing who we would have liked to see in it, including Denver
Yeah, I don't
Barkey
think he
and
ever did anything in camp from
no.
what I could see, which is a shame.
Yeah, Carter Sutherland didn't play, Cole Knuble didn't play, Alex Cernak didn't play. So, definitely some missing people that we would have liked to see, but, of what we did see, again, it was a ton of fun. You could tell, a lot of the guys were really going for it. This is my favorite part of Dev Camp, especially with the camp invitees, because like, this is their moment where they have to
Mhm.
make an impression, and they always, try and take advantage of it.
Yeah, no question. I mean, I had shown a video earlier in the week of Sam Sedley, and now I'm thinking, I'm forgetting the team he played for in the OHL. Maybe Owen Sound.
I
Uh,
think so.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they retweeted it, and they're like, "Hey, he's our guy," and that's what teams do in the off season. But
Yeah.
uh, really, I mean, he's been really good. He was really good in camp with drills. He was really good in this game. Like, I would really consider signing him because there is something there. There's a poise there, and just the way he is with the puck in the offensive zone, that's very good. I mean, guys like Emil Andrae, you would expect to do really well. He's been playing pro hockey. Uh, I understand, and I have a long camp view on Bobby Brink. Yeah, he had a lot of shots on goal, and that's very good. but I am seeing things in his game, and I have spoken to people at the draft who covered him in Denver and have been watching him, and so there's some issues still with Bobby Brink that eventually we'll talk about here. But Alex Bump was terrific in this game. Carson Bjarnason was really good. I mean, he didn't have a lot of defense at times.
Right.
So, there were a lot of good things that happened in this game. And again, it's mostly offensive. There's some defense being played. Like, Oliver Bonk definitely played some defense and looked good. And so, but I do still evaluate. So it's not like everybody looked good every moment, every shift. So I do take mental notes on some things. That's just me.
Yeah, I think, you mentioned Alex Bump. I think to me, he was the standout of the
Yeah.
game. And I think, partially because some of the other guys you would expect to play well and they did. So they kind of met expectations, but Alex Bump exceeded
Hmm.
expectations, and that's why he stood out to me. He scored on a really nice move off a Elliot Denoye pass. He scored again in the 3-on-3 portion of the
Hmm.
scrimmage. Like that goal was really pretty.
Yes, it was.
We'll put a link to that one in the show notes if we can find the specific video of that. And then he scored in the shootout, which was also delightful. Like
Yeah.
he's just like, I think his hands are just really good, and he knows when to take advantage of these opportunities. And I really hope that he's just one of these guys that's like a later round pick that can really make an impression.
Yeah, I mean, his hands are good. They're not like Owen McLaughlin good because he has really good hands.
Hmm.
But he's got more power behind his shot now, Bump. So the
Yeah.
combination of the two is noticeable.
Yeah, and I think, we talked about him, just doing our regular check-ins on the
Hmm.
prospects, a few months ago, and I think he looks better now than he did
Yeah.
when we talked about him, maybe even like February or March was
No,
when
he
we talked
does.
about him.
I think that's a guy that's noticeably better.
I would say that, to your point about Bobby Brink, I get what you're saying. I think that he was really just trying to like show that he has the mobility, and I think some of the moves he was making and um the choices he was making was really designed to show the mobility, maybe a little less so than speed in some instances. And so I think that there could have been a little bit of a plan of attack there, so to speak.
But I watched him in
But
drills too, and his he was like if he was in with three guys, he was either coming in third or coming in
yeah, I'm
second.
just talking in the game.
No, I get it. I get it. Even in the game, I saw some issues with some stamina problems. Like he couldn't really get more than one good 20-25 seconds going without then having to kind of come off the ice. So it was like he would make a good impact and then he would try something else and he couldn't. So, and I get it. He was trying to set up other guys too, and then he was trying to, take some good shots, but I still expected more from him.
Yeah, you mentioned Owen McLaughlin, another late round pick
Yeah,
for the Flyers. Man, he does have some great hands. That
he does.
wraparound goal that got past Carson Bjarnason,
Yeah,
like Bjarnason just lost
yeah.
because McLaughlin was so quick around
Hmm.
the backside, and I thought that was really impressive. And then his shootout move was really fun too.
It was, yeah. He's a guy that again was going to be a project because he was really thin, needed some
Hmm.
power, needed to play some defense. He's going to the right school for that. So yeah, I could see improvement, a lot of improvement in the last year and a half.
Yeah, I think so. And then, as far as the goaltenders went, we talked about when we observed earlier in the week that it's really hard to evaluate the goaltenders at camp because they're doing very specific things for specific reasons, and there's
Yeah.
filming and there's not really a ton of like game scenario to look at. So I thought Carson Bjarnason looked pretty solid. I think there was a couple little misses like that McLaughlin wraparound goal, but other than that, I thought he stood pretty tall. Um that team faced more shots overall by a
Oh
wide
yeah.
margin in that scrimmage. So he certainly had to do the work. And then as far as the invitees, I thought Sterling stood out amongst them. He had to make a few really big saves. He is very, very tall. So he's kind of hard to miss.
He takes
But
up a lot of net. He's not that fast,
yeah,
but he does
yeah,
take up a lot of net. Bjarnason was really good. I mean, his defense kind of let him down a few times, no
yeah.
question about it. So I liked what I saw, but these games are very hard on goalies.
They are, because it's really designed for the goal scorers to show
Right.
off, right?
Yes.
I thought it was interesting that they did not do any special team scenarios in the game.
Yeah, they treated it like like a regular sort of hockey camp, and so the play with
Mhm,
Avon a thing that happens in camp, and so yeah,
mhm.
that's fine. I mean, and that was a nice goal by Avon. You knew he was going to be, going to
Oh,
get it.
he was gonna get one eventually,
He was
right?
going to get one, especially in that circumstance. So it's fine. Yeah, I didn't have a problem with that. It moves things along. They didn't want to have to deal with, they again because they're not really teaching special teams in this camp, and these guys don't really play together. So I get why they don't do it.
Yeah, well, we have some more guys to talk about, including Samu Tuomala, Adam Jennings, and a lot more, and we'll do that coming up next. So, Russ, when we started our conversation about development camp, Samu Tuomala's name came up quite a bit, and we were talking about how important this camp was for him, and what he really needed to do to stand out and to show that there was improvement. What was your overall take on his camp?
Yeah, I mean, he, would show some physicality at times and showed off some speed at times. And so he showed things at times, and he is 20, so he's kind of like in the middle age of what you usually have at dev camp. But putting it all together, like I haven't seen him put it all together yet. And I'm gonna, he didn't do that first go round. I hope he could do that second go round here now, with Lehigh, and
Mhm.
that's what I really need to
Yeah.
see. And I need to see him affect a lot of different parts of a game because that's what he should be able to do.
It was interesting. He had some media availability on Wednesday. Sammy Kapanen was there
Yeah,
to be a support slash translator, but he was like answering as many questions as possible in English. I think he really only didn't answer one of them where he had a translation. So English is getting better, and that's something that's really important to him.
yeah,
But as far as the on ice side of things, he is really working hard to get stronger and add power to his skating, which I think is something we knew he needed to work on. So it's
yes.
good that he's working on the right stuff.
He is working on the right stuff, and you can see some flashes of that. So that's, that part's a positive.
Yeah, I think so too. And then, some defensemen, Adam Jennings obviously should be one of the top defensemen at the camp, as should Emil Andrae,
Yeah,
because they're the ones that are almost on the cusp of making the Flyers again, along with Ronnie Attard being that sort of borderline crew. And I think that the two of them really like lived up to those expectations
they
in
did.
camp and in the scrimmage. I thought Adam Jennings just showed his usual patience
Yeah.
and intelligence with the puck. Emil Andrae was just like out there like making moves and
Yeah,
dishing off like
he was the
he-
best passing defenseman out
yeah,
there by far.
absolutely.
Like, he was making
Absolutely.
some really good poised passes, great passes. So, yeah, and that's the kinda game you get out of Andre and Jennings now. My brain still has to figure that one out. Yeah, he's just smart with the puck. He really doesn't make mistakes. I just like his overall defensive game and the way he moves the puck up the ice, the way he has it. Even in the offensive zone, he knows what to do. He knows what he is. He's not going to have it on his stick very long.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And again, I'm excited for these Phantoms next season to see if they could take a step up in terms of their success, but also we're really doing a good job now of getting these prospects ready to go, and there'll be more of them this season.
Yeah, I mean that's the challenge is getting them all to fit into big spots. I don't want to see them get pushed into like lesser spots for veterans. That's the only thing. So we'll see, how that part of it goes with the Phantoms. That's the part I'm going to be looking at.
Yeah, I think so too. A couple other guys I wanted to bring up in Devin Kaplan and Zaid Wisdom, just because I think Devin Kaplan obviously going back to college, but you could see the improvement. We talked about it
Hmm.
from the earlier part of camp, but again, he's another kid who's really working on the things that we know he needs to work on. So it's always reassuring when the team knows it. But he's been working on his angling and adjusting to the speeds, working on the puck retrieval, and that he feels like his experience at BU was, the right kind of experience to take a step forward in his individual development. And then he's grown into his body a little bit more.
Yeah, he's grown into his body a bit more. He's handling the puck a little better at speed. So those things were definitely noticeable for him.
Yeah, I think so for sure. Zaid Wisdom, again, a rough season this past year with spending time in Reading,
Yeah.
but that he really feels like he has the support he needs from the organization, and that seeing what Tyson Forster has done and taking his game to the next level is a motivation. But I feel like he was a lot more intense and focused in what he was doing at camp, whether it was the drills, or in the scrimmage, just like with the little things. He wasn't like the best one out there by any stretch, but I think you could just tell what he was working on during the scrimmage.
Yeah, I would say overall in camp, he looked more like the guy from 2 years ago.
Yeah, I would say that as well. And he also mentioned he was very happy for his brother getting drafted, and like
Yeah.
the biggest smile on his face of the whole interview.
Yeah,
So
people can go to
I love
sportsalgy.com if
seeing
you want to
that.
read about Zachariah Wisdom. I interviewed him a couple years ago. He's a great kid. Talked about Zaid and his impact
Yeah.
on him. So it's a good story.
Yeah, and the Kraken have been definitely highlighting him in their dev camp.
Yeah.
So you can see what the Kraken have been putting out about him as well. But yeah, just I think, other than that, I would just say the energy at this development camp felt really good. I felt there was a lot of positivity. Everybody kind of knew what they were working toward. I felt like the fan presence at dev camp was really positive and just like really interested in seeing all these guys succeed.
Yeah, the fans were great. They're definitely looking forward to seeing these guys play someday. So that's good. I feel like um, there's more personnel for sure with the team. Doesn't mean they're going to get better results because they have more personnel. You still got to be doing the right things. I saw a few minor changes. We have no idea what they did off ice, right? So that's the big
Right.
unknown here, and maybe we'll find out down the line. So that's something
Yeah.
where we'll see if we can find out see any results from that.
Yeah, I do know, because, he posted about it. Chris Therien, spoke to them off ice about his life experience.
Yeah, we
Had
expected
him on
that.
our we've had him on our show here, so you can go back and look at that episode.
Yeah.
But, it was good to see Therien kind of back with the organization and contributing.
Yeah, no question. I mean, he's got a great story to tell and can be very motivational for sure and just down to earth.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Dev Camp is in the books. We're into really the dog days of summer. But again, there's a lot going on with the Flyers. So we have a lot to talk about. On Monday, we're going to get into a little, like, I would say, midterm grade about Danny Briere's summer so
Hmm.
far, and what they've been able to put together. Plus, we'll have our nemesis of the week as well. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. Send in your mailbag questions via Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com, or you can comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Have a great weekend, everyone.